Willkommen in einem neuen Fragens video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case episode 1 of my game design series of videos. In this video I'll be providing a brief overview of World War II and Cold War skirmish figure gaming rules. This is my third version of this video, and apart from adding more rules to it, I'm using improved audio equipment, so I hope it'll be easier to listen to. While this is the first video in my series concerning game system design, it was an afterthought and is not specifically part of my original series of videos. The level of rules reviewed will be minimal. Instead, it's a simple overview of all the skirmish set of rules I'm aware of, so players can see what options are available in this scale. Skirmish rule game scales or game systems differ a great deal from other scales I'll be covering in subsequent videos. And while there are a lot of nice ideas in this scale, most of the ideas would find it difficult to transplant itself into another scale, so tend to be unique to skirmish rules. The concept of what a skirmish set of rules are is defined by the scale used for the infantry. If each element or base represents a single soldier, it's definitely skirmish scale. Skirmish scale rules are very loose when it comes to game scales, such as distance scales and game turn scales. Often the sequence of play is similar to chess, with only one element being moved at a time by each side. This is not how this scale started, but is certainly the state of the art today for these rules. One very good thing about this scale is games are easy to set up and quick to play, as long as strengths on each side is kept down. The downside is the main focus is on the infantry rather than tanks and vehicles, but this is only a downside if you want to play with tanks. Those players who like tanks may be better off moving to the next scale up, which is the squad scale. As I indicated before, skirmish rules are certainly not new, but the wide range of simple and professional rules available today has resulted in this scale becoming incredibly popular. It's not hard to see why this is the case. Anyone who can purchase a few, infantry figures can immediately have a game. Originally designed for 1/72 scale plastic figures back in the day, the rules have expanded into metal figures of all sorts of different scales, although normally erring on the side of the larger figures. Let's look at our first set of rules. This is possibly the biblical Adam of skirmish rules, printed in 1972 and focused on infantry actions. Initially designed for 20mm figures or 1/72 scale, it also caters to 54mm figures. The focus was accuracy and detail, so this does not fit in well with modern rules. The rules are available as a free PDF download, and I must admit the rules are hard to interpret. I think the sequence of play is a fluid, simultaneous movement system, but after studying the rules, I'm still uncertain if this interpretation is correct. If someone knew how to play the rules or knows how to play it, I'm sure they could teach someone fairly rapidly, but it's a bit of a slog if you decide to learn these rules based on the book itself. Tactical Commander wargame rules are designed for World War II skirmish actions involving 1/76 scale figures and vehicles. The rules cover almost every aspect of late World War II battles, with sections on air and naval support, paratrooper, glider and beach landings, with a good blend of detail, realism and playability. All troops, equipment and extra ammunition are given values in points. Each player receives a certain number of points before the battle, from which they can choose their forces from. In addition to this cost, machine guns, mortars, radio sets, grenades, anti-tank mines and other equipment take up certain load spaces inside vehicles, which need to be considered prior to a mission. The vehicle lift section shows the load capacity of jeeps, trucks, trailers, half-tracks, tanks, and other vehicles which may be employed in a skirmish scenario. Using these rules, the 3/4-ton trailer supplied with the Airfix M5A1 half-track or Hasegawa Willys Jeep finally becomes a valuable wargame asset. Significantly more complex than modern skirmish rules, nonetheless an interesting set of rules. Firefight are a comprehensive set of rules for small unit actions since 1945. They are designed to give a playable game while recreating the uncertainty of modern warfare. To this end, the old-fashioned method of drawing chits is used to control initiative, while for playability, the hit chance of some weapons have been reduced. However, it still does not pay to advance in the open towards an alert sustained fire machine gun, for example. A game turn is 30 seconds long, composing of a variable number of phases between 5 and 10 seconds, depending on the initiative of the troops. The ground scale is 1 centimetre equals 1 metre, and is near enough 1-on-1 for 20 mil or 176 figures. If you wish to use 1/200th scale, a ground scale of 5 mm to 1 metre is more appropriate. The only thing I can say about these rules is that they are very complex. Battleground World War II is a comprehensive, well-presented set of skirmish rules for World War II, resolving action at the individual soldier and vehicle crew member level. The designer's intent is to provide a fast-playing set of rules which captures the spirit of ground combat. Units of both sides move in random order determined by the playing of cards, with each person able to perform 2 actions per turn. Morale rules allow for fanatics, cowards and heroes, and gut checks are required before characters can perform highly risky act. Rules cover artillery, engineers, armoured and infantry combat, but do not cover air support. A generic squad organisation is provided, and generic hit locations for tanks and half-tracks. Supplements will fill in more details, as well as the data for nationalities other than German, American and Russian, so additional material is required. 7 scenarios are designed to allow players to gradually learn the rules, including a chapter on making your own terrain, plus an introduction by Harold Coit, author of Team Yankee. Once again, possibly a little bit more simple than the earlier rules, but still reasonably complex. The Face of Battle is a game played with a set of cards that will allow you to complete an action for a soldier. There is no I go, you go playing here. Both you and your opponent flip cards from the respective decks and state what action is to be completed. This game can be a bit complex and can scare off green wargamers due to this level of complexity, but it's significantly less complex than the previous games we've covered. There are 2 rule sets you can choose from, either the Face of Battle or the Face of Modern Battle. The former is geared towards World War II and comes with weapons and vehicle stats for Germans and Russians. The latter is geared towards modern warfare and comes with stats for modern weapons and vehicles. Both use the same mechanisms. The modern version includes rules for more modern equipment, like anti-tank guided missiles or the use of helicopters. There are also 2 expansions for World War II, Americans and Commonwealth troops, again giving stats for all the weapons and vehicles used by those nations, plus some extra special rules. No matter which book or expansion, they all come with a number of relevant scenarios and notes on historical force compositions. This is a reasonably simple and complete set of rules compared to the previous ones, although still, according to this review, comparatively complex. The Arc of Fire is a set of rules which uses an initiative system based on cards. These cards are collected together and shuffled to make a pack, with each card being turned over in sequence to determine the order that the units take their actions in each turn. When a group's card is turned, it gets to act. The authors also produced excellent World War II campaign scenario booklets, which are ideal for Arc of Fire. These booklets add a lot of detail on the various units and orders of battle, which is lacking in the specific rules. The rules mention you can have company-size engagements, which I would expect would represent a monster of a game. The use of cards is becoming more and more common from about 2000 onwards, and this dramatically improves playability, or did when it was introduced, and became extremely popular. I Ain't Been Shot, Mum is a very unusual set of rules, with the use of cards being a major focus. Based on my preliminary analysis, these rules fall within the playability and fun at all costs camp, with the sacrifice being realism. There's nothing wrong with this, and getting a good fun game is really the whole point of the exercise, but for more experienced gamers, it may not be an ideal choice. The ground and time scales are difficult to pin down, with one design indicating the ground scale was close to 1 in 300, which puts it firmly in the skirmish arena. I would class these rules as popular, and they are commonly used around the world. Starting your skirmish adventure with these rules, I think, would be an optimal choice if anyone was interested in getting into this scale. Patrol World War II is a fast-playing man-to-man skirmish system that recreates squad patrols in any theatre of the Second World War, with as little as 10 miniatures per size and a 4x4 foot playing area. Individual games last from 15 minutes to 1 hour, allowing for multiple exciting games in an evening's play. While I've never used these rules or see them in action, they do seem popular when you look at the internet. Unique features of Combat Patrol World War II are the basic rules are just 8 pages in length, and that includes several pictorial examples of firing and grenade resolution that fills almost a full page themselves. The review goes on a little bit, and I won't repeat myself, but these are very much rules that fit into the have a fun game at all cost arena, and again are another good initial choice if people are interested to getting into skirmish gaming. Baptism of Fire 3 is evolved from earlier TFP games rules. The system uses a non-traditional card draw. Well, actually, skirmish rules by this time pretty much all used a card draw, so I'm not quite sure why that's considered as non-traditional. But anyway, let's move on. The player with the initiative deciding from 2 to 5 cards, creating a pace of play and simultaneous resolution of both sides' activations. The rules also uses a sliding dice scale to reflect relative difficulty to resolve tasks or functions. No adding modifiers to create impossibilities of failure or success. BOF3 instead changes the size of the die rolling against fixed numbers, a simpler and faster system, according to the rules or description or review. Leaders form the centre of attention. They allow troops a greater degree of flexibility, and better leaders will be able to motivate and lead their men more effectively. They do this through command points. Points may be spent to coax and motivate, direct actions more effectively, increase die sizes, and more. Leaders with reserve command points may also be reactivated within the same turn, pushing the men harder as they read or anticipate the tactical situation better than inferior leaders. Chain reaction, the rules, is reasonably similar to another set of rules called Nuts, which allow you to easily play a 2-hour game at convention. Version 3 was published in 2009. In most such games, Side A moves, shoots and conducts melee, then Side B moves, shoots and conducts melee. In the THW reaction system, Side A activates and moves some of its figures. Side B then reacts to that movement, which in turn may cause Side A to react to that reaction, and so on. This goes back and forth until it peters out. Usually one side dies, is neutralised, or flees. And then Side A activates another group of figures. It plays much faster than that description would lead you to think. Each player only really has control of figures, or one figure. The rest move according to dice rolls and the rules. You can even download these rules from the Scribe site, which makes me think that they may not be as popular as I originally thought they may have been. Force on Force is a standalone game, companion to Ambush Alley, a game of modern urban combat that supports scenarios involving engagement between forces of similar organisation and capacity, and also provides rules to support mixed engagement involving forces containing both regular and irregular troops. While Ambush Alley, a game of modern urban combat, focuses on asymmetrical engagements, battle between organised military units and guerrillas, or irregular forces, this gives you a bit more choice. Very professional rules focused on realism. These rules has a lot of commonality with the earlier skirmish rules, which tends to focus on realism rather than being a beer and pretzel game. Nuts is based off the Chain Reaction 3.0 system, which allows you to easily play a 2-hour game at a convention. The core of Nuts, final version, is its unique reaction system, making combat dynamic and unpredictable. Each soldier may react differently under fire, including the enemy units. There are hidden enemies called possible enemy forces. You'll never know where, when, how many of what type of enemy will pop up on the board to meet your squad. I've heard a lot of good things about these rules recently, which, considering when they first came out, makes me think these rules have real staying power. This is something I would probably consider investigating if you wanted to get into this scale. Flying Lead takes the award-winning Song of Blades and Heroes mechanics into, and even beyond, the modern world of high-powered projectile weapons. These core rules will enable you to play using small table areas and a handful of figures. By using our online forces, weapons and vehicle generators, players will be able to customize their characters and get playing straight away. Very simple set of rules, very low number of elements. First published in early 2012, Bolt Action has similar mechanics to 40k, making it easier for 40k veterans to understand. The system on a whole is a more gameplay-focused experience. All weapons are mostly generic, and have been reduced to rifle or SMG rather than each faction having its own correct and different weapon, leading the game to have a very arcade feel to it. And for those who want a more historically focused game, maybe it's not really the direction they want to go down. These rules may well be, in my opinion, the most popular of the skirmish rules out there at the present moment. Another very good choice if you wish to enter this scale. It has extremely good supporting material in addition. Chain of Command has an interesting patrol-based deployment method, with each player placing a number of patrol markers on the table, which move until they are within 12 inches of an enemy patrol marker. This represents the deployment zone for each player. Instead of cards, these rules use an activation die roll system. The rules have a good range of support materials, such as army lists and scenarios, very complete and very professional. These are another good choice for players who wish to enter the scale. They are also reasonably popular, and if you look on the internet, you'll find a reasonably large number of images of games. Focused Firepower are freeware rules. Focused Firepower is a scenario-driven World War II tabletop wargame design to be played with 1/72 scale miniatures. Although the system works just as well with 28mm models, and I would assume 15mm models, we have endeavoured, or the game designers have endeavoured, to offer an in-depth game system with a focus on realism, but the system we have developed is easy to learn and games flow reasonably well. These rules have not really gained much traction, but I've included here for players who wish to try a set of free rules before expending too much energy into this scale. Probably something well worth downloading and taking a look at if you're interested in going into this scale but haven't actually invested any money yet. Combat Patrol is yet another card-based miniature game skirmish. The unique double random activation mechanism provides a leap-ahead method for activating units that provide the friction and drama of card-based system with none of the drawbacks. More unusually, it uses a card-based combat resolution mechanism that is exciting and simple while eliminating unsightly charts cluttering your beautiful gaming table. These rules have a band of very loyal followers, with many praising the rules in various forums. For those players who want detail and realism, they may not be the direction you should go down, but for those who want a fun game, these are, again, another set of rules that you would probably need to consider. And so we come to an end of actually looking at the individual rules. Let's just take a look at the scale generally. Skirmish rules really began with a focus on realism and history and accuracy, and as a result were reasonably complex and difficult to learn. This was compensated for by the low number of elements or figures, but it still took a lot of effort to get into it. If you found someone at a club that knew these early rules, then they were okay to get into, but if you wanted to start from scratch, they weren't that useful or easy to get into, and that could explain why their popularity wasn't so great in the old days, and I'm talking about 70s, 80s and probably early 90s. Then something occurred in the 1990s, and the rules coming out had a major focus on playability and quick fun games. More often than not, a card-based system was used, which tended to work well, and element count was very low. You could still find your historical and realistic set of rules, but even these had a greater focus on playability because that's what people wanted. The result of this was a dramatic increase in interest in this scale. You never had the same, level of interest in this scale in terms of detail, historical and realism compared with other scales, but this scale is the perfect scale if someone wants a quick 1 to 2 hour fun games, as long as the rules in turn were simple and easy to use. The figures were normally 20mm or larger, and you could look very nice indeed, and if the terrain was well made, you could really achieve a very high level of bling. In conclusion, the primary objective of most skirmish rules is playability with fun, short and intense games. This is a good objective, but apart from some rules which focus on detail, historical accuracy does suffer as a result. I personally do not mind this, and as I get older, my main focus is generally getting a fun game, but I must admit I do like more historical detail than most of these rules provide. And so we come to an end of another video. This concludes episode 1 of my video on Micro-Armour, or on game system design, which in this case provides an overview of skirmish scale figure gaming for World War II and Cold War periods. Alle guten Dinge kommen zu einem Ende.